not expect this many people to show up. I'm kind of terrified.
Use it as fuel.
For those of you who don't know, who I'm assuming is many of you, my name is Sketch.
Hello.
I have been doing UDCon for many years. I don't know exactly how many, like 8, 9. And I love Homestuck, if you could not tell.
Could you explain to the folks that are new what is that? Because I'm kind of new.
We will get to that.
Don't worry.
I said some stuff to the people who came in a little bit earlier, most importantly being that I am not covering anything outside of canon. And for those of you who don't know, canon is kind of a weird word to throw around when it comes to Homestuck, because there is a lot of Homestuck stuff that involves the actual use of canon. It's very meta, but essentially canon is everything that happens in Homestuck proper, like just Homestuck. There are like spin-off games, there's Homestuck 2 Squared, I don't know, but
Okay, those are like whole new characters.
yeah, the whole things we're not gonna matter.
Are we counting the Snapchats?
We are doing half of the Snapchats. There are some that came out after everything, and there are some that are just the credits to Homestuck.
Okay.
The credits we will cover, those are canon. The ones that happen after are not, because they tie into Homestuck too.
And you not do that one?
Can you put this on your desk where you can see him?
And sort of weird.
I know. There's an understatement.
Yes, that is a statement.
Are we not talking about Paradox Space either?
Again, that's kind of a spin-off thing. Paradox Space is for the series of comics. So. Ooh, you guys got me scared here. So.
Bored scared?
Yeah, for context, I got up to the beginning of Act 4 done pretty quickly. I got it done in like maybe like 2 weeks when I first wanted to do this. And then I took a month-long break because I procrastinate like hell. And by the time I knew it, it was a week before the con, and I only had John Explores Loas, and I was terrified. And I somehow managed to do all of this within that week. Yes.
So I've never heard of Homestuck in my life. How, on a scale of 1 to 10, how scared should I be?
Well,
Oh God.
So this is my co-host. For those of you who can't see him, this is Inspector Barry Breath.
I love him.
But in all honesty, I am forming this in sort of a lecture kind of thing. I've watched a few YouTube videos recently. This one guy, Ben Saint, he has a group called the Procrastinators, and they very much inspired me to do this. He has a 9-hour-long video about Mega Man lore, and I love Mega Man, and I was like, I should do that with Homestuck.
I
Then I
have seen
regret
it.
I've seen it, right?
I've seen it. It's very good. I love that video.
I highly suggest you check out their channel and everyone else who is associated with the Procrastinators channel. It's very much similar to this. And they not only inspired me to do Homestuck, but if I have the motivation to, I do want to turn this into a potential series, a comprehensive guide to blank. And we will get into that at the end of the panel, as we have some options for you guys to vote on for what the topic will be next year. Again, of course, I love Homestuck, so it's the first one. And I figured that it's funny, given how complicated it is, and you guys would love to see me struggle. So,
Yes.
hopefully I'm right. I don't want to say without further ado, because that means we have to start this mess.
Do you think we have enough time?
We will.
We got 2 hours.
We'll make
We have 2
time.
hours. We do have 2 hours. I specifically asked for that much because I knew this would take forever.
As long as there's nothing in this room afterwards, if we run a little over.
Yeah, honestly, if you guys wouldn't mind and we do end up taking a little more time, you're free to stay, I guess, but that's up to you. A little bits and bops. Every black bar with words in it or every bubble letter is a flash animation that we will be watching, because I think for those
Yay.
specific ones, it will be easier to tell. Tell the story instead of just me explaining what's going on. Should I cover some history behind Homestuck itself?
Yes.
Yes.
What pumpkin?
So, Homestuck is a webcomic created by Andrew Hussey. They They are insane. Also, for those of you who don't know, Toby Fox, creator of Undertale, lived in Andrew Hussey's basement and started Undertale in Andrew Hussey's basement.
Wait, what?
Oh my god.
And also, Toby Fox
That's the only reason
was
Undertale
essentially
happened.
the lead of the music team for Homestuck, so Homestuck has some pretty fucking good music. You'll hear a familiar one later. Homestuck originally started, I believe, April 11th or 12th as a beta that was done in all Flash, and Andrew Hussey decided that it was too much and decided to switch over to MS Paint for most of it. And given that the site was called MS Paint Adventures, it makes sense. But again, Flash was still heavily used, as you can tell from all of these. Anything else? Toblerones, caves, giant lips, horses.
You're just listing things.
I am just listing things off so we can get to this.
Talk about the what's it called, the What Pumpkin, and how that was the first iteration of how Homestuck kind of happened.
Yeah,
With the forums.
Yeah, the What Pumpkin forums. Well, those kind of start. Yeah,
That's like the proto
those
beginning.
started with. I don't want to get too much into those because that gets away from Homestuck. But there were a set of forums that Andrew Hussey did. He had a bunch of other webcomics, or they had a bunch of other webcomics. One of them was Bard Quest, can't think of it.
Problem
Midnight
Sleuth.
Cruise. Problem Sleuth. Problem Sleuth is where What Pumpkin originated from. And What Pumpkin being like, there was an item that was a pumpkin. It's like, oh, interact with the pumpkin. What pumpkin? It's gone. But yeah, they eventually made a whole company and stuff. They were called What Pumpkin and stuff like that. Pumpkin gets mentioned in Homestuck. It's a lot. And as I start up the music again, we will begin Homestuck.
Say the thing.
Without further ado,
Say the
let
thing.
me tell you about Homestuck.
Yeah!
What did I
Beginning
miss?
April 13th, 2009. Today just so happens to be a certain young man's birthday as he's standing alone in his room.
I'm barely
Does
older than
anyone know the
Homestuck.
name of this young man?
Does it smell poop, Lord?
Thank you. Try again, smartass. His name is John Egbert.
Oh.
Today is his birthday. There are some things you need to know about John. He hates cake and clowns, specifically Harlequins, loves coding, shitty movies, pranks, piano, and his friends.
No, I hate clowns too. Said I hate clowns too.
Yes. Don't we all? Today is also the day John is expecting to receive a certain beta copy of a game called Spurb that he and his friends have heard about. Now, there is no information about Spurb, so I don't know why they're so excited about it, but a mysterious game kind of popped up, came out, and he's gonna play it with his friends. So John in his room starts messing around. He has to interact with his arms and his magic chest full of all his goodies. For those of you who don't know, Homestuck's art style largely consists of little tiny sprites who don't have arms, and that's a play on that. But in his chest, he finds, again, his fake plastic arms, which he doesn't need. He does indeed have arms. That is the first question a lot of people ask when looking at Homestuck characters. He finds a book, Colonel Sassacre's prank book. It's a large, gigantic fucking monster of a tome. And he also opens a gift that he got from one of his friends, Dave Strider, who we'll get to later, a fan favorite. And it contains the prop money used in Con Air, which John is a huge fan of. Again, he loves shitty old movies. All his friends have different Pester Chum handles. Pester Chum is the chat client that they use, kind of like Discord. They all have usernames on. Yes.
It's real. It's an IRC chat. Get it.
For $16.99.
It's free. Get it. It's real.
We have Turn
Use
Tech
my link and
Podcast,
you will pay $16.99.
Tentacle Therapist, Rose Lalonde, Garden Gnostic, Jay Harley, and Ghostly Trickster / Ectobiologist, John Egbert. Up until now, they have never met in person. That is important. Because, oh my god. John, right now, only has his client disc of Spurb, which needs two of. There's a client disk and the server disk. One allows you to play with other people, one allows the other person to play with you. What was I? Yes, Rosaline is the server player for John. She's going to play with John, and then John is going to play with her, and then Dave and Jay are going to play with each other, vice versa in the same way. But as they go to play, some things happen. John gets into a strife with his dad, which is basically how fights work in Homestuck. It's not anything serious. It's just his dad trying to give him cake on his birthday, which John doesn't exactly like too much. And he's just kind of overwhelmed by the whole thing. He manages to escape thanks to some smoke pellets he had. Hold on a sec. And he makes his way out with a copy and some other stuff. Yes, at the end. And it's that we see our first Flash animation. Don't get too excited though. This one is very simple. Oh, almost forgot. Oh yeah, that's about the epilogues. We're not going into those. That is the Infinite Spur, the game that they play, the loading sequence. So once they start playing Spur, they kind of get used to the mechanics. There are a couple. There's one that I forgot to mention a little earlier, and we'll get into that now. I was kind of dreading getting into it because it's extremely complicated. It involves coding, which I do not know anything about. And that is Sylladex. In Homestuck, not in Spur, people have inventories, kind of like in a game, and they're all themed around different things, mostly coding. John has stack, I believe, first. You can change the type of your inventory, and how stack works is the first item you take in is the last item you take out. It's a stack. You have to take everything out before you can reach the one at the bottom. There's another one later he gets, which is Q, which is the reverse. And then there's one he gets even later. That array, which is my favorite because it's simple. You can just take anything in and out at any place, no matter what. And my other favorite is an extremely complicated one called hash map, which I don't really want to get into. It involves numbers. Yes.
I'm just gonna guess this is gonna be an isekai story.
Not really.
Oh wow.
If anything, it's more like you'll never go back.
Oh.
So, in Spur, there are a couple mechanics. There's building, which is most important as it's what lets you progress. The server player can interact with the client player by altering their real-life world, specifically their house. They can add, take away, and their ultimate goal is to build as high as they can to reach certain gates. We'll get into a bit. In order to build, they have to collect build crisps, a resource that you can get from defeating enemies or other ways. There are a couple machines that they need to use for this game that they play. There's the Alchemizer, the Punch Designix, the Totem Lathe, and I think two others. The most important right now are the Totem Lathe and the Alchemizer. The Totem Lathe allows you to put your inventory cards that you have and these big gem totems into a essentially it essentially carves a shape out of them. Given the item that you put in, each item has its own specific capture code and all of that. And so whatever you put the item in and make it into a lathe, you put it on the Alchemizer, and the Alchemizer turns it into another version of that item. When you start Spurb, you get a little you get a little a kernel sprite. It's like a little fairy friend that follows you around, and you can prototype it with something. And once you do that, you kind of start the game, because that's when you open the crux extruder. That's one I forgot to mention. That gives you little dowels. And once you open the crux extruder, you end the world. A countdown begins. A little timer on the crux extruder. It begins at 4:13, a very important number in Homestuck, as it is not only John Ember's birthday when Homestuck started, but we'll see later on how it can matter even more. But he has 4 minutes and 13 seconds to essentially do something before he dies. And the first thing he prototypes with his kernel sprite, which when you prototype something with your kernel sprite, not only does the kernel sprite evolve itself, all the enemies around you gain the property of whatever you prototype. So John firstly prototypes a Harlequin doll, again, which he hates, so into his kernel sprite, and it becomes a little gesture friend, follows him around, and tries to help him. And all the enemies get little jester hats, and they're kind of goofy little guys. John then has to use the alchemizer and the punch design X to create a key that will let him go and enter the medium. Medium is when the game essentially really starts. That's when you can actually fight the enemies and such. For John, his is I'm not sure if you can see it, yeah, you definitely can't. A little blue apple that he has to crunch. That's when he enters LOAS, which stands for Land of Wind and Shade. Every time a new player plays Spurb, you essentially get your own planet somewhere deep in the universe that orbits another planet called Skaya. And Skaya is essentially a planet-sized chessboard, of which the black side is destined to win, as is, but if the players help the white side, then they can win and beat the game. And that is the end of Act 2. It's pretty short and simple. I'm in Act 1. Act 2 starts with Wayward Vagabond, later to be known as the Mayor. Hold him up. He's a funny
he's
guy.
so cute.
Oh, he's friend.
Oh, it's official. Oh, cute.
The Mayor of Cantown. After Wayward Vagabond kind of messes around and sees his way through some ancient ruins, we cut back to the present, and specifically to a, yes, actually GameFAQs form. The GameFAQs is just in Homestuck, and Rosalon, a certain person that we met earlier, is writing this form for Spurb, documenting what's happening, how to play the game, even though it isn't really going to help anyone, because again, the world is ending right now. And because of a storm, what?
Will we be getting pictures of what the characters look like because we don't know who they are?
That's a good idea. On second thought, I might do that later and turn the projector off because Homestuck can be weird and I don't want to accidentally.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Yes.
How does the world end?
It's not ended. It has not ended yet. It is in the process of ending. The world ends once you start the crux extruder. Meteors start raining down at where you are, and so when John crunches the apple and he teleports, a meteor's about to hit his house. Crunch gets teleported to the land of wind and shade, and he's essentially safe. Rose doesn't see it because again, it's only in your area. And none of his other friends see it. They all live relatively far apart. Don't know where. All I know is that Dave specifically lives in Texas, I guess.
He lives in Texas, and Jade lives on Rhode Island somewhere.
Somewhere, yeah.
And Rose is somewhere around here.
Yeah, Rose is around here.
So Rose, we get to see her for a little bit. She is having, throughout Act 1, trouble connecting to John because of a storm that has been affecting her, and so her Wi-Fi has been kind of shoddy. And she accidentally drops John's dad's car into what is presumed infinite abyss as she's editing his world. And so originally the plan was that John and Rose were going to play with each other, both client and server, and that Jade and Dave were going to play with each other in the same way. But because of reasons and chaos and the fact that they didn't realize that this game would be so fucking insane, they decided to just play it in a way that makes it so that they are all connected to each other. So that John would play with Jade, Jade would play with Rose, and Rose would play with John, and so on. So John asks Dave, hey, can you play with Rose? Dave says yes, but can't do it at the moment because he tried to get his beta copies, which he had in his room. He grabbed his beta copies, they were there, and then a crow came through his window, tried to steal it. He yelled stop, which activated his Celodex and his inventory system, which is HashMap, and specifically works so that if he gestures in a certain way relating to a certain thing in his inventory, or says a word that relates to a certain thing in his inventory, it ejects out at terminal velocity. It flew out of his window, and he lost his game copy.
He also stayed with apple juice. You forgot. He stayed
Yeah.
in with apple juice,
He also
put them on the window so to dry, and then the crow came.
Yes, he did stay. That's another thing with that Dave. He, for some reason, loves apple juice. Yes,
Is it actually
Loves
apple?
appy
it is actually apple juice.
As far as we know.
What kind of apple juice?
Yeah, all we see is a glass bottle with apple juice in it. So after that, Dave decides to go borrow his brother's copy of the game. I don't want to get into Bro's whole thing right now. Just know that he's just know that he's kind of sucks. He's an abusive guardian. He loves weirdly phallic puppets that he has around his house at all times.
Adults here, it's fine.
Yeah, and he also subjects Dave to constant training matches on top of the roof, where they just straight up go at it with swords.
Jesus.
But this was 2009. So
I like to think when they're on the roof doing their matches, Duel of the Fates is playing in the background.
it gets
Oh,
intense.
brother. Yeah, I don't know what's going on here.
So, after Dave decides that he has to borrow his brother's game copies, we cut back to Rose, who after a scuffle with her mom, who is, John probably has the best home life out of everyone in Homestuck. Rose, abusive and fucking weird. Mom is an alcoholic and doesn't really seem to care about Rose all that much. And Jade lives on an island by herself because her grandfather is dead.
Don't forget.
And
has
she
his
does have
corpse stuffed in the living
Yes,
room.
She does have this corpse taxidermied in the living room.
Jesus.
Go back.
I'll be there.
Go back.
So after Rose fights with her mom, she goes to this tomb that she apparently has in her backyard for her cat, which honestly kind of base. Her cat Jasper's, and as she's going down there, she finds a portable generator, so she just chills out in the tomb, and now the meteor shower is starting to spread a little bit. And since John's already gone, it's not much of a problem for him. But for Dave and Rose, it's starting to become a problem. Rose connects to John's game, so reconnects. Okay, yeah. Rose gets power back thanks to the generator, and since she's kind of out of the house, she gets gear signal for her Wi-Fi and manages to connect to John. And while messing around, John accidentally prototypes the ashes of his grandmother in his Colonel Sprite. So now the Colonel Sprite is his grandma, but wearing a funny little Jester's outfit, and she constantly loves to make pranks, which she already did, so it's like tenfold. And thankfully, we get a little bit of exposition, as all the sprites in Homestuck and in Spur, rather, are there to help the player, give them more knowledge, and just let them win, essentially, otherwise they would kind of be screwed. So Nana Sprite, as it's now called, helps John by explaining some stuff about Skya. Again, the fact that it is a battlefield, a big chessboard. And every time a player prototypes something in their Colonel Sprite, the battlefield gets bigger. At first, it's essentially just a big chessboard floating out in space, then it turns into a cube, and then a sphere, and then an actual planet-sized chessboard. And with the two kingdoms, again, the white and black going at it, and that the players have to help the White Kingdom and defeat the Black Kingdom. And then they win the game, they are able to make a new universe. That's the whole point of Spur. you leave your old one behind and you essentially become the gods of a new universe. So after learning this, John and Rose decide to, take it a bit more seriously. They decide to go about their way of building their way up to the gates. There are a couple that are above, where you spawn on your planet. And your goal is to get to the highest one, defeat your denizen, and you get access to the ultimate reward, creating a new universe. So John decides to beat some enemies, get some grist, while Rose decides to build up his house, and they just go about the game. Some imps which are the enemies, kidnap John's dad, who yes is still in the house, and somehow didn't notice anything going on.
Well, did he notice or did he just not care?
He might have just not cared. John's dad is like low key fucking awesome. We'll see later. So his dad gets kidnapped, and now the meteors are starting to cause forest fires around Rose's house, which is the mansion, by the way. I forgot to mention that. And those spread to where Rose is and surround Jasper's tomb. And the fires make Rose's connection worse, so she disconnects again. And Mom, who I'll just refer to all the parents don't really have names. So John's dad is just Dad Egbert. Rose's mom is just Mom Milan, and so on and so forth. Dave's bro is just bro. So I will refer to them as such. So Mom helps Rose by remotely opening a secret passage in the tomb, and so Rose decides to descend down further into the depths underneath her house as Dave continues to search for his brother to no avail. He later finds a note from his brother telling him to meet on the roof for a fight. Dave is cool as fuck. Dave essentially, he gets battle ready. He gets all his shit together, gets his swords, goes throughout his house, and starts making his way to the stairs. There's an animation, but I didn't put this much of that. Dave eventually makes it to the top. Before we can see the fight, we cut back to Wayward Vagabond, who accidentally locked himself outside of a terminal. The terminal is what is essentially giving the commands in Homestuck. As we can see here, there's not really too good of an explanation. I guess. So, here, anything that's like the S, that stands for sound page. And all of these are, like, every way to continue to the next page in Homestuck is represented by some kind of, like, input command, as if someone was, like, typing in on, like, a console, like, oh, next page. And we find out that that is, in fact, what is actually happening. Wayward Vagabond was typing some of those commands, and he locks himself out of the terminal, so he decides to do something else. Wayward Vagabond searches around, finds some canned food, but no can opener, so that sucks. And instead, he starts eating some non-edible stuff, because no can opener. Like, for example, a chunk of uranium.
Oh.
He's not the brightest, but man, is he the best. So since he can't eat, essentially, he uses the cans to build Can Town. How did I put that again? Can Town. He gets chalk, he has some cans, he puts together a big Can Town, he finds a label for a thing of mayonnaise, takes the label off, gets some wires, wraps it around him, and makes his little sash where he puts a little he puts the chalk on the thing and turns a mayor into a mayor, and now he's just the mayor of Can Town. He finds an purifier, it's essentially just a teleporter, and frees a firefly from its amber. This firefly will be going to known as Serenity. Reference, if you can't tell. And as he's messing around, the station that he is in blasts out of the sand and starts flying through the air. And it lands somewhere near some mysterious frog-like ruins. Speaking of frog-like ruins, Jade Harley wakes up. Jade is very fun, sleepy girl. She likes to garden. She has, she's got some pretty cool fucking shit in her room. Her whole house is more or less of a house, more of like a giant laboratory on a remote island. Oh yeah, and by the way, she has a god dog. This dog is literally, it can fucking teleport. It's like this, as strong as, I don't even know, it's insane. He also has no eyes, which is kind of weird. That is like one thing that actually is like there despite the art style. Again, like the kids aren't shown with arms, normally with the sprites, and Beck isn't shown with eyes, but Beck just, that's the name of the dog by the way, legit has no eyes. What does that say? Oh yeah, we find out that Jade has some sort of clairvoyance. We don't know why or how it works or such, but she knows things that she shouldn't really be able to know. And she has to retrieve a month's late birthday gift from John. So Beck is.
Are we next, you know?
What?
Are we next, you know?
Yep, you're on Act 3. See that, and there actually starts at the top. So Beck is introduced playing fetch with Jade as she's going to retrieve the gift. She also has to irradiate a steak and feed it to him. Apparently he only eats irradiated things. God dog. And as she's doing this, she kind of gets tired out after playing with Beck, so she falls asleep and wakes up in Prospit. Prospit is one of 2 planets that orbit Skya. In fact, they're less than orbit, more of a chain to. They have literal giant chains that are attached to Skya. Prospit is one of them, the other is Durst. Prospit is entirely gold, Durst is entirely purple. They each have residents, the Carapacians, who are also on Skya itself. So yeah, she wakes up in Prospect, and you might be wondering, she was just playing with the dog, why the fuck is she on another planet out there in the middle of nowhere? It's because once you start playing Spurb, or intend to start playing Spurb, it's unclear, you have a dream self. That dream self wakes up on a designated planet, whether that be Prospect or Durst. There's only one character who has both, and we'll see him later. He's pretty fucking cool. And so she wakes up as her dream self, but she also has a robot duplicate of herself in her house that does the exact same things as her dream self. So that's just kind of wandering around. Jade finds Dream John, but for some reason, Dream John isn't awake, even when he's sleeping. Again, normally when you fall asleep in one place, you wake up in the other. So if John were to sleep in the real world, his dream self would still be asleep. I don't think it's fully explained, which is weird. So we also find out that it is on CrossFit that Jade finds out about the future and the past. This is how she has her clairvoyance, how she finds out the things she knows, because the clouds on Skya and CrossFit and Durst by extension all show the future, the past, or just any significant event, really. Gold gift disappearifies. Right. The gift that is for Jade from John, that she had yet to receive, disappears. It's gone. It poofs away, literally. And she ends up finding, Jade ends up finding Dave's Spurb copies in a time capsule. Which is weird because last time we saw them, they were launched out the window, attached to a probe, attached to a sword. Dave, we cut back to, is currently being fucking demolished by his brother. He's wailing on him. Come back to Rose, and we learn about Jasper's secret. When Jasper was Rose's cat was still alive, you see a flashback about Rose sitting there playing Jasper's, and Jasper leans in and whispers to her ear something. We don't know what it is. And Rose is shocked by this, and writes the secret in a journal. But we'll learn more about that later. As of right now, we come back to the present, and Rose finds a secret underground lab underneath the tomb, and a machine that is keeping track of where the meteors are hitting. And how long it's going to take until Earth is essentially fully destroyed by all of these meteors. And also in this room, she finds like a shit ton of like little green like power bricks, and they're like literally littering the room. It's like a big ass grid.
It's
Full.
practically the whole floor of one of the rooms.
Yeah. God, I lost my place. Shit. Okay. Underground lab. Dad Egbert breaks out of jail. He literally fucking busts through the bars with his bare hands. He's like, oh hell yeah. He makes his way out. He goes to Skya, and we don't really see that much of him yet. Wayward Vagabond appears the lost gift. Why it disappeared from Jade is because the purifier in the old terminal works again. Now it's with Wayward Vagabond. Jade knew this would happen because of the clouds in Skya and attached us a note telling Peregrine Mendicant what to do. WV and PM, which I will start referring to him as, which is Wayward Vagabond and Peregrine Mendicant, meet each other. Peregrine Mendicant is essentially a mail lady. She is going to deliver the package to past Jade, essentially. And as they meet and are planning to deliver this package to past Jade, they find Aimless Renegade. These three characters and a couple more, which we'll meet later, are known as the Exiles. They are indeed from the future, and not in the sense of like past Jade or our current Jade. I mean like even farther in the future. Like Earth is already destroyed at this point, and has been for some time now. So they come up with a plan to distract AR, Aimless Renegade, while PM goes to deliver the package to past Jade, completing the circle, the time loop, essentially. This is the easiest to understand time shenanigans in all of Homestuck.
Yeah, it really is.
So John continues to grind some grist by defeating enemies, and finds his dad's room is now open because a giant fucking chunk of grist, which look like gushers by the way, but do not taste like gushers, he did try, crashes to the ground, opens a giant hole, so when John picks it up, he's like, oh, dad's room, shkoink. He jumps in there, and he finds out the dreaded secret. It's normal. It's fucking completely normal. He's a businessman. He has posters of just a guy smoking a cigar, like a business guy. His room is just all fucking hats and suits. It's crazy. And in there, he finds some birthday gifts from himself that his dad was going to give to him, but obviously that. And in here, he finds the wallet Silodex type, which is one of the coolest ones. It's basically just like a ray, which is you can take anything in and out, but it works on like a super big scale. Like you can take a fucking mood in your inventory with that shit. It's crazy.
How old is John again?
What?
How old is John again?
John is 13 years old, as well as everyone so far. So, as that's happening, we meet Jack Noir. Jack Noir is going to be our main villain, at least for a little bit. We start seeing Jack as a simple Dursite, a Carapacian on Durs, working for the Black Queen. He hates his job and wants to die or wants to kill someone. Either or is good for him at this point. And he was in charge of making sure that John's dad didn't escape. But he kind of likes John's dad a little bit because he hates the uniform he has to wear, given that it looks like a fucking clown. And John's dad sets the hat on fire, throws it on the ground, and stomps it out. And he's like, okay, that's good. And as that's happening, he's just kind of doing his day job. He hates it again, as usual. So John finds out about some writing on his wall after he gets back from grinding grist, which is a bunch of just like self-deprecating things. There's a lot of weird, like clownish kind of stuff, and he's like freaked out about it. He's like, oh goddamn, these little imp guys wrote all over my walls, messed up all my posters. This sucks. And when talking to Rose, he finds out that writing has been there the entire time that Rose has been able to see him, all the way back in Act 1, and John just for some reason wasn't able to see it, implying that John wrote all of that in his sleep, which is concerning. Dave, we come back to, eventually finally loses after getting the shit beat out of him. And as he does, Bro leaves, after breaking Dave's sword in half, destroying a weird ass puppet named Lil Cal that belongs to his bro, and which I shit you not becomes one of the most important things in all of Homestuck.
Yeah.
And he gets the betas from his brother. That is where Enter begins. Oh, look at that perfect timing for the music too. Awesome. And that is where Enter begins.
Was that Rose and Dave?
That was Rose and Dave. Yeah, I don't need to show you guys. You guys will see him in here. This is currently Dave. There's the apple juice.
Totally apple juice.
Bro.
That's Rose. And Mutie, the mutant kitten. That is Jade. That is Sweet Bro and Hella Jeff. The comic that Dave makes there is a comic that Dave makes called Sweet Bro and Hella Jeff. He has an entire fucking form about it, and they are the somehow funniest and shittiest comics I've ever seen in my life.
They're delightful.
There is a very popular joke in Sweet Bro and Hella Jeff called "I warned you about those stairs, dog. I told you about those stairs." Where yes.
So I for years knew about Sweet Bro and Hella Jeff. They told me it was connected to Homestuck, and I was so fucking mad. I didn't know it was connected at all.
Yeah, so Dave canonically is the author of Sweet Bro and Hella Jeff.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
So
they're also
Oh, you go first.
No, that's fine.
Are we pre or post Warhammer of Zillihu at this point?
This is pre-Warhammer of Zillihu. I will say when we get Warhammer of Zillihu. It's a weapon.
Oh,
So
okay.
The best.
essentially what happens is where was I? What was that? Sweet Bro and Hella Jeff. So yeah, Sweet Bro and Hella Jeff is a comic that exists outside of Homestuck as well, written by Andrew Hussey. They're fucking it's insane. But Dave in Homestuck
Correct.
is
No,
the
it's
writer.
written by Dave Strider.
Yes, of course.
Jade.
So, like I said earlier, that is Jade waiting for the time capsule to open so she can receive the betas. And this is
There's
Dave.
meteorites.
This is Dave joining the game. Now that he has his betas.
So is the one ended yet?
I mean, the fire is, it has not ended, but again, it's still ending.
It's like very close.
Kind of. Jade still isn't experiencing anything. She lives so far away. Oh yes, I will get to this afterwards, but Rose loves wizards.
Just take a nap.
So she just prototyped her dead cat Jaspers. Yeah, that is her key. So she needs to do something with that bottle in order to enter the medium. That is Nanosprite.
Oh, that's Sean's right.
There's the window. Dave, for some reason, is like a crow magnet. Crows love him.
He does not love them.
If it steals the sunglasses, you're shining.
They're more sassy.
Close.
Yes.
We've reached the peak.
I know.
That is John. called the wrinkle fucker.
Oh, so you have this camera already?
Yes. Yeah. I'll go over some stuff on this.
And then you took the puzzle hammer.
That is called the telescopic sassafras, the giant one on top of the roof.
Oh, wait, that's confusing.
That's a real plastic laptop. So, some things I missed. John and let me go back to that. So in Homestuck, another thing alongside your inventory, this is not in Square, this is just a thing in the world of Homestuck, you have something called a strength specific, which essentially is what kind of weapon you use when you fight. You can only ever equip one, and once you equip it, you cannot equip anything else. And that does not mean you can only equip one weapon forever, it means you can only equip one type of weapon forever. So for example, if I were to equip this umbrella, I would be stuck fighting with umbrellas for the rest of my life. John chose a hammer. He didn't really want to at first because he didn't realize that he was going to be stuck with it, but it ends up working out for him in the long run. Also some things, Rose loves anything eldritch. She loves the eldritch horror, she loves magic, she loves wizards. She's also kind of dog. So, she's pretty
Kind
cool.
of?
Kind of. Yeah, she's pretty cool. Dave loves rapping, he loves irony, his whole personality is based around liking things because it's ironic, and being ironic is cool.
That's right.
Yep.
It's
Facts.
only read ironically.
So that leads us to the intermission. I'm not going to cover the intermission too heavily. You just need to know that there's a group of mobsters who are all also Carapacians, like the people on Durst, Prospect, and Skya, called the Midnight Crew. In fact, I will, despite not playing anything, I will play.
Oh, hell yeah.
Please.
Yes.
They do have a theme song. So, I'll kind of go through some like spark notes here. The Midnight Crew is rare enough to fight with the Velt, a rival gang. I should have done a little more research on this so I can tell you all what they do. I'll try to do my best though. The Midnight Crew is just a group of guys. They're fucking awesome, but they're just normal Carapacians. The Velt are leprechauns. Get into that stuff over there, which I don't want to get into. They have some history that we'll get into around Act 6, but all you need to know is that they're all green. They all have names from 1 to 15. They're all represented by different pool balls, like in billiards. So they all have little hats that like mark them. Some of them are solid, some of them have stripes. And there are 2 that are kind of like outliers. One is named Snowman. She is not a leprechaun. She is another Carapacian. And the other is I can't remember right now. That's not that important now. If I can't remember, obviously. It's not like Homestuck, everything's important. But all you need to know about them is that each member of the Velt either has some kind of ability relating to time, or has an artifact that will allow them to use an ability related to time. Some of them include a straight-up oven that you can set the timer to, and it teleports you that far in time. One of them is an egg timer that basically does the same thing. One of them, my favorite, is a little voodoo doll, essentially, that has pins in it. And they all represent a member of the Midnight Crew and the Velt. And depending on which ones you put in or take out, it will teleport you to a universe where the person who took out is dead. And there are some other ones, but the most important one is the leader of the Velt. His name. They all have names relating to the numbers, also, like so the. I don't know.
Lord.
But
Is he the white ball?
he's not. That is Doc Scratch.
Are you talking about Lord English? Lord English?
No. There's another one. He has a crowbar, and the crowbar allows him to. So each of the items that allow them to. Yes.
The oven, the time traveling oven, if I remember correctly, doesn't that only go forward at a rate of 1 second? per
Yes,
second?
it only goes forward at a rate of 1 second to 1 second. So it's essentially just like waiting in an oven.
Oh my god. Wait, so you're basically waiting in the oven for like a second for the
So like let's say you set it to like 2 hours. It won't like straight up teleport you 2 hours in the future. You'll be waiting in an oven for 2 hours.
For 2 hours. Like it's instant for everyone else,
Yeah,
but for
so
you, you
everyone
have
else
to
will
wait
just
2
appear,
hours.
but
You are waiting in there?
You are just waiting in there.
so the most important one is a crowbar that when you use it, all the other items that allow you to do these wacky things are called jujus. And the crowbar, normally you can't destroy a juju. It exists at all times and its origin is unknown because it essentially propagates itself so that it can't not exist. And the crowbar allows you to just not worry about that. You can destroy it no matter what and it will cease. But yeah. And as we go through the Midnight Crew, they're essentially fighting the Felt, which is extremely hard again because they all have time travel shenanigans. And eventually, Spade Slick, the leader of the Midnight Crew, gets pretty far along. They kill some of the members of the Felt. There's 2 members in particular who I think are particularly interesting. One can see a trail that leads to everywhere you're going to be. They can essentially see your future and where you are going to go. And another can see your past. The thing is, if you interact with anyone while you are observing their past or present, they can see you as if you were there, like right next to them. So the Midnight Crew takes advantage of that, and the guy who can see into the future is like watching to see where someone's gonna be. But that guy also has like a super long stick, and he's just kind of waving it around, and he pokes the guy so he knows where he is, and he just fucking unloads and kills him. It's fucking awesome. But the only thing really that you need to know about the intermission right now is that at the end of it, trolls are introduced. We don't get to them until a little bit later, but they are
They exist.
they
They're
take
there.
up a lot of Homestuck. And then after that, though, we get into Act 4. Let me bring the music back up. Alrighty. So, we begin Act 4 with John exploring his planet a little bit. Yes?
I'm just curious about a little temp check. There's no questions from anyone, right? This makes all perfect sense to everyone?
100%.
Yes.
Really? John Avery, how you doing?
Okay. We begin with John exploring Loas, the land of wind and shade. And this is when the control. Oh, Dave! Hello!
Yo!
You're a little late. We're just starting on Act 4.
Dave is always
So
special.
given that you're cosplaying Dave,
Did you get enough for all of us?
Enough.
No.
So, Act 4 begins with John exploring Loas. He's just kind of talking to the people there, because each planet does have residents. They're typically little animal guys. And John's planet has salamanders. They're little salamander guys. Another thing you should know about the land of wind and shade, it's called wind and shade because obviously it's very windy. It's called shade because the planet's oceans are essentially entirely oil, and there's a lot of oil on this planet. And it was also around this time we get truly introduced to the first troll, Karkat. Karkat starts trolling John, which essentially just means he starts something like we see in important movies. Karkat trolls John, which essentially just means he starts talking to John. A thing about the trolls that is very confusing, and that I applaud Rose for later on, is that they talk to the kids in reverse. So the earlier a troll talks to a kid, the later it is in the troll timeline. But the earlier a troll talks to a kid, the later it is in the kid timeline. Yes.
Only Karkat and maybe one of the others does it that way, but they don't all do it that way.
Yeah, I remember that specifically later on. Another troll, Kanaya Miriam, tries to talk to Rose, and Rose refuses to talk to her until she can get her timeline straight, which is hilarious.
Yeah, but
So-
she does it in like a, I'm just gonna pick a time.
Yeah, it is more like that. The gist is it's out of order. They don't talk to the kids in order. So Rose shows up on her planet after entering the medium Lolar, which is the land of light and rain. It's filled with like white mountains, rainbows, fucking everywhere. It's pretty cool. And it's also around this time that Dave actually starts getting into the game. He prototypes his Colonel Sprite for the first time by throwing in the crow that he accidentally killed into it, and in doing such, he goes through this whole thing where the crow gives him the key to enter the medium, which is an egg, and then he has to find a way to make sure the egg hatches so he can go into the medium. A meteor is coming down. Bro is trying to help him out, so he's on top of the meteor and fucking cleaves it straight in half so it doesn't hit Dave. And that's like the only good thing that we do see Bro doing, really. There's another thing we'll do with that.
Is Jake on a video game?
We have, not yet. I don't think. Yeah, Jake doesn't get fully introduced until much later, but does get kind of introduced relatively soon. So, Dave, after letting the egg hatch, enters into his planet, Lohak, the land of heat and clockwork, which is essentially just a big place filled with gears and lava. In my opinion, it's the coolest one. This is also when we get introduced to another troll, Terezi. Terezi starts trolling John as well, and says that she wants to do a little experiment, and that she wants John's help to help prove to the other trolls that they're wrong and saying that the timeline can't be changed. She thinks that it can be. And to prove it, they are going to have John go fight his denizen a little bit earlier than he planned to. By doing this, John immediately fucking dies.
Oh.
You should have a thing over there that says how many times John has died.
I'll just write a death counter.
John's death counter.
John death counter.
John doesn't die too many times, so I'll just do a general death counter because I think it's funnier and we'll see a much higher number. Let's see.
Are you doing tallies?
Yes, I am. 1. John died.
Oh, sorry, I said Jake, not Jake.
Oh, Jade? We already met Jade.
No, sorry, in the game now.
What about their grandpa? Does that count?
Kind of, but not really.
What about the cat?
The cat was already dead.
Oh, like you mean the cat we saw in the animation?
No, the cat that's dead.
Jasper's? Yeah, I'll include Jasper's.
And the crow.
And the crow, yeah.
The crow does
And
become
every
something
day.
much more important, so honestly, for real, I'll include that. So,
We got 3 so far.
yep. So again, Terezi starts trolling John. Terezi Pyro, that's his name. Carcat Fantis is Carcat's full name. And she's like, oh yeah, you can take him, you can change the timeline. He can't. So John agrees and dies, and this creates the first doomed timeline. Doomed timeline essentially means that no matter what they do, they ain't going anywhere. The game is fucked. And luckily, this is kind of meant to happen, and also is implied not to be the original timeline anyway. Because even though John dies, future Dave and future Rose, Jade dies in this timeline as well because she isn't able to make it into the game in time. They decide to keep playing so that they can build up enough stuff, essentially, so that Dave can time travel back before John dies, prevent John from dying, help himself in the past, and set them on the right track. So he does. He goes back in time, fixes a mistake that Dave makes where he prototypes for the second time his Colonel Sprite the little cow doll that he fucked up by accident with the crow, and it's like super fucking annoying and can't stop laughing. Like it's super strong, but it's so annoying he hates it. So instead he prototypes himself from the future, and it becomes Dave's Sprite, who is one of the fucking coolest looking guys. He's all orange, he has the wings, he has the sword in him, he takes it out and fights with it, it's awesome.
Is this explained at this point, or is this explained later?
We see this.
We see this, okay.
Yeah. So, I'm just playing like a Homestuck playlist. I know some of the songs. So John lives. Yay! I'm not gonna take that away though because he does still
He
technically
did die.
Did Jade die as well then?
Jade did die as well. That's another mark. Oh boy, 4 already. Yes, it is. Literally. No, I'll wait. So, John, instead of going and fighting his denizen, decides to explore some more and reach some higher gates. And in doing so, after he reaches the next gate, meets Rose for the first time in person, although she's sleeping, so it's not really that much of a need. And John decides to be a little fucker and look through Rose's shit while she's sleeping. And in doing so, he finds her journals that have Jasper's secret written in them. Specifically, he does look though only because Dave told him to. So I guess really it's Dave's fault. Anyways, John does manage to find though the birthday gift that Rose didn't get to send to him yet, so he takes that with him, and it's another rabbit. It's another little bunny plush. This one's a bit different. It looks exactly like the one that Dave got him, but it's all patchwork. And it has like purple fabric all over it. It's really cool. After that, Dave and Rose get into alchemy. I forgot to mention this earlier. Alchemy, again, you essentially put an item in and it makes that item. What you do with that is you can put two items in and it fuses that items in different ways. There's the AND function and the OR function. I don't know enough about coding to get into it, but essentially it makes really cool stuff. I see you're gonna raise your hand,
You're
yeah.
talking about Boolean stuff right now.
About what?
And or not Boolean stuff.
I can't hear you that well.
Boolean search.
Yeah.
Like and or not. Library science maybe.
Nice.
Nice.
So, yeah, they fused a bunch of stuff. Again, we saw one of the products of fusion of the alchemy earlier, the Wrinkle Fucker, which is a fusion of an iron and John's previous hammer, the Pogo Hammer, which is when he fused a sledgehammer, and this little like pogo ride that he has. John's shirt, before he had that suit, which he found in his dad's closet and also fused with a little pogo ride, used to have like a Japanese knockoff of Slimer from Ghostbusters on it that he got as a birthday gift a couple years before this. But yeah, so he fused that with an iron, got the Ringo Fucker. He fused the Colonel Sassacre book with a telescope, and he fused the telescope with a hammer, and it became the telescopic Sassacrusher. And it's fucking
What?
awesome, it's gigantic. But it was so big he couldn't wield it, and so he fused his dad's PDA with gloves to make like these fucking gloves that have like these ghost hands that could lift it for him. He makes a lot of stuff. Equally so, Dave and Rose are about to make a lot of stuff, because now they're like actually getting into the game. Dave makes some suits of his own. Rose makes like some fucking fancy ass battle dress, which is awesome. Dave makes a Peanuts like sword that can fold in half, because despite only being able to equip a single weapon ever, Dave does manage to change his weapon type once Bro breaks his sword. It goes from full sword to half sword types. Now you can only fight with half swords, which sucks. But he manages to make a sword that can like flick in and out, which works. So after they alchemize a bit, we meet the Draconian Dignitary who works for Jack. This guy is a member of the Midnight Crew, but not actually. The Midnight Crew version of him is like the original version. The Draconian Dignitary version is a different version of him. There's a lot of like alternate universe shenanigans. So Jack Noir is both the Queen's like fucking right hand or whatever, I don't know. And he's also the leader of the Midnight Crew in a different universe, and the Draconian Dignitary is someone who's like works under Jack Noir for the Black Queen, but is also a member of the Midnight Crew in that same universe. God, it's already getting confusing. So, Draconian
Anything less.
The Draconian Dignitary, I'll just call him DD for now, steals Dave's betas and Rose's journals. He leaves them in the Frog Temple, which is how Jade gets them from the time capsule, but he only puts the betas in the capsule itself. The journals, he just leaves on the floor. Dee looks in the journals, and as he's looking through it, he sees that the only thing that the journals contain is the word meow, over and over and over and over and over. So Jasper's secret was meow. He uses this as a genetic sequence, however, in the Purifier, which can also perform something called ectobiology, which is where John gets his pester chunk handle from. And the reason he has it before knowing what ectobiology is because one of the trolls from the future who knows that John performs ectobiology tells him in the past, and he goes, "That's a cool name, I'm going to use that," despite not knowing what it means. So John finds the transportalizer, and then he actually does become the ectobiologist. Also, when DD is here, he uses the genetic sequence and the Purifier to target basically what is Jade's dog from a different timeline, and using the meow genetic sequence turns him into Beth and gives him the god powers. So we cut back to Wayward Vagabond and such, where Aimless Renegade, he surrenders after they are fighting. Yeah, he surrenders after they fight. And so Aimless Renegade, Wayward Vagabond, and Peregrine Mendicant all become friends now. Pretty fast. Then again, they're all exiles, and we meet a new exile, the Windswept Vestal, who we learn is actually the White Queen from the future. So they all recognize her as the White Queen. They do this little thing where like they make like a little crown out of her, I forget what it was, but like a makeshift crown for her. And then she takes it, and she's like, oh, I can't have this. And she gives it to PM, and it's a very sweet moment. We also learned that Wayward Vagabond found the Queen's ring earlier. Now, the rings of the kings and queens of Skaya are very important because they do some pretty wacky shit. We won't get into that right now because we're cutting back to the current time. In the past, Aimless Renegade, known as a different name, it's still AR though, confiscates John's last gift, which is from Jade, I believe, and the sperm disc that he lost, because remember, he only had the one. And past PM gets a letter from Jade saying that she's supposed to deliver both of these to John. But I forget for what reason, AR only gives her the spur beta disc and not the package. And so he confiscates the package, brings it to the Queen's Tower, where Jack has to guard it now. And